everybody, welcome back to Miss Anna's at-home science lab. Let's get started. Today you will be working for Metro Dollars. They'll be rewarded to you throughout the lesson when your teachers see you doing a good job paying attention, listening, and answering questions. Let's start off with a brain pop. This will serve as our anticipatory set to help us figure out what we are learning about today.
Moby, stop messing with the temperature controls. Huh. Dear Tim and Moby, why is a refrigerator cold? From Victor 122. Well, a refrigerator's job is to keep food cold so that the food stays fresh longer. All food has bacteria in it, and the lower the temperature, the slower the bacteria grows. Milk can go bad in 3 or 4 hours if you leave it out on the kitchen counter. But in the fridge, milk stays good for at least a week. If you freeze it, it can last for months. A refrigerator works by circulating a substance called a refrigerant through a system of pipes. The refrigerant is usually some chemical that evaporates at a really low temperature, usually around minus 32 degrees Celsius or minus 26 degrees Fahrenheit. The condenser coils on the outside of the refrigerator get rid of heat. The evaporator coils on the inside absorb heat. The compressor pumps the refrigerant gas into the condenser coils. As it pumps, the compressor raises the pressure and temperature of the refrigerant gas. The compressor coils get rid of extra heat created during this process, which is why it's so warm behind a refrigerator. With that extra heat gone, the refrigerant cools and eventually turns into a liquid. The way back into the fridge is through a little hole called the expansion valve. Inside the evaporator coils, the refrigerant is no longer compressed, so it evaporates back into a gas. Evaporation absorbs heat, like the sweat evaporating off your skin on a hot day. So the refrigerant gas inside the evaporator coils absorbs the heat from the air and food inside your refrigerator. Then it's back up to the compressor. This cycle happens continuously, keeping your food cool. So remember to put milk back in the refrigerator when you're done with it so it doesn't get all hard and... Ew!
Gross. Ew, that milk looked nasty. Wow. All right, so now that we've watched our video for our anticipatory set, let's review the steps to testing an idea. First, we need to listen to the question, then make a prediction, then we will analyze the information, and finally, we will check our prediction and make a conclusion. This will help us to make complex choices and make connections. Okay, based on the anticipatory set, what do you predict we will learn about today? Do you predict we will learn about pollution, the lake, or food storage? If you said food storage, you are correct. Let's review the steps for synthesizing knowledge. The first thing we need to do is listen to the teacher. Then we need to listen to the whole lesson. We will think about the information we are learning right now, and then we will think about the information that we learn later. And this will help us to make connections in different classes and to think creatively and critically. Let's read our I can statement. I can make and store food in a safe way. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to say that you can make and store food in a safe way. Awesome. Where should foods be stored? That's our essential question for today. We will be learning how to answer this question throughout the lesson. Where should foods be stored? Here is our vocabulary term. Store food. This means to put food away in the refrigerator, freezer, or pantry. Okay, we will have questions throughout the lesson. When we have questions, remember to listen to the question, listen to all of the answer choices, think about your choices, and answer the question by choosing one of the answer choices. Okay, we have a picture of a refrigerator. Beautiful refrigerator. I love how organized it is. Let's learn about things you put in the refrigerator. You put asparagus in the refrigerator. Asparagus will go bad if left out at room temperature. It is considered a leafy green. Raw chicken. Raw chicken will go bad if left on the counter for more than 2 hours. Make sure you put raw chicken in the refrigerator. It is stored there. Cheese. Cheese should be stored in the refrigerator. If you leave it on the counter, it will get moldy and spoil. Strawberries. Berries need to go in the refrigerator too. Let's talk about some foods that go in the freezer. These are foods that are stored in the freezer. Ice cream is one example of a food that we would store in the freezer. Ice. That can only be kept in the freezer or it would melt. If you wanted to store raw steak or other meats in the freezer, you could do that. You just need to make sure that you prepare them the correct way to freeze them. This could also be stored in the refrigerator. Some foods can go in the refrigerator or the freezer. It depends on how long you want them to last. Pantry. Some foods that go in the pantry or in your cabinets include bread. Also, cereal is stored in the pantry. Potato chips are stored in the pantry. Great job, guys. I like how you were paying attention. Now, I want you to complete this next activity using your annotation feature and pausing throughout the lesson. The reason that we are doing this layout is because some items can be stored in more than one place. Remember how I talked about the steak and I said it can either go in the refrigerator or the freezer based on how long you want it to last, how long you want it to stay good before it spoils. You know, I forgot to mention one thing. It also depends on when you want to eat the steak. If you plan to eat the steak tonight for dinner, you don't need to freeze the steak, put it in the refrigerator. But if you want the steak a month from now, you will need to put it in the freezer, and then a few days before you get ready to eat it, put it in the refrigerator so it can thaw. So some foods, they can go in multiple different places to be stored. Let's think about green leafy vegetables like lettuce. Where would you store lettuce? Would you store it in the pantry, fridge, or freezer? Use your annotation feature to show me where you would store lettuce. All right, guys, you would need to store lettuce in the fridge. Hopefully you said fridge. If you put lettuce in the pantry, it would go bad. It would spoil. It needs to be kept cold. And if you put it in the freezer, it would just get frostbite. It wouldn't last. It would not be something you would want to eat anymore. So the correct answer is fridge. That is the only answer for this one. All right. Next up we have oatmeal. Where would you store oatmeal? Would you store oatmeal in the pantry, fridge, freezer, more than one? Use your annotation feature to show us. Okay, the only correct answer for this is pantry. You would need to store your oatmeal in the pantry. It does not need to be kept cold or frozen. Popsicles. Where would you store popsicles? The pantry, the fridge, the freezer? More than one? Show us your answer. All right, if you said freezer, you are correct. Popsicles would melt if you put them in the pantry or the fridge. They have to be kept at a freezing temperature, hence putting them in the freezer. What about milk? Where could milk be stored? Could it be in more than one place? Think back to our brain pop we just watched. Do we store milk in the pantry? How about the fridge? How about the freezer? Okay, if you said fridge and freezer, you are correct. You could put milk in the fridge or the freezer. You could not put milk in the pantry, though. Great job. Oranges. Where could we store oranges? Could we store them in the pantry? Could we store them in the fridge? Could we store them in the freezer? Okay. This one's tricky because you could store them maybe not in the pantry, but on the countertops, so they could be kept out at room temperature. You could store them in the fridge. And if you prepared them, cut them up and got them ready, you could actually freeze them as well. I think the most common answer is probably the fridge. I would store my oranges in the fridge, most likely. Remember, oranges are a semi-perishable item, which means they don't go bad right away if they are left out. They would last for a little bit. And they would probably keep even longer if put in the fridge. But they don't have to be put in the fridge. Okay, next up we have soup. Tomato soup. Where would we put this? Pantry, fridge, or freezer? Still in the can. Okay, if you said pantry, you are correct. We store any kind of canned foods in the pantry. If we open the soup, ate some and didn't eat it all and had leftovers, then we would put it in the fridge. But when it's still in the can, it goes in the pantry. Raw steak. Where all could we store raw steak? Pantry, fridge, freezer. What do you think? Okay, we could store raw steak in the fridge and in the freezer. If you plan to eat it tonight or in the next few days, you could put it in the fridge. If you plan to eat it a long time from now, maybe a month or two from now, put it in the freezer. You do not put raw steak or any raw meats in the pantry. They will spoil and could make you very sick if you eat that. Hey, what about Chex Mix? In a bag. Chex Mix, where do we put that? If you said pantry, you are correct. There's no need to store this in the fridge or freezer. It will last a long time in the pantry. All right, what about these frozen vegetables, frozen corn? Where does that need to go? Frozen corn, you hear that word. Frozen foods go in the freezer. Okay, this could only go in the freezer. Freezer is the correct answer. All right, we have our diversity piece coming up. We have listened to the lesson. We are now going to talk about how it applies to the school, the community, and the world. To do that, we are going to be reading a story. This story is called Colonial America, Food and Cooking. Life in colonial America was different than life in America today. Check out these pictures. How was life in colonial America different? Let's take a look and see. Look at the kitchens. Wow. Here's a kitchen in colonial America, and here's a modern day kitchen. Kitchens were much different in colonial America. Kitchens had fewer ways to store and cook food. Life at home was more difficult in colonial America. Check out this picture of this man who is picking what looks like berries off of a bush. Colonists grew their own food. They planted seeds, grew plants, and harvested food. Colonists grew fruits and vegetables. Oh, look at this picture of all the jarred canned foods up here. Colonists preserved their food. They would preserve meats, fruits, and vegetables. Colonists preserved food by sealing it in containers. Ooh, whoa, look at all the bugs flying around. Ooh, yikes. Colonists did not have refrigerators. It was difficult to keep food fresh in warm weather. The warm temperature would spoil their food. Some food would only last a short time, especially those perishable foods. Wow, look at this person cooking over the fire. You guys may remember some of these tools from Mr. John's lessons on colonial America. Colonists cooked food in pans and kettles. These were placed over a fire. Colonists cooked food like soups and pies. Cooking food over a fire was dangerous. I bet, yeah, open flame. Whew. Okay, here we are with the modern day kitchen and how a kitchen used to look, just over a fire. Life in colonial America was different than life in America today. But it was also the same in some ways. The end. All right. Thank you guys for reading that story with me. So let's do some review. Here are items that need to be kept in the refrigerator. Milk, yogurt, cheese, butter, eggs, ketchup after it's opened, tomatoes after they are sliced, mustard after it's opened, jelly after it's opened, juice, deli meats, and any kind of dressing after it is opened. These all should be stored in the refrigerator so they do not go bad. Remember, when foods go bad, they can make you sick. They can give you food poisoning. These are foods that should be stored in the cabinets or the pantry. Popcorn, pretzels, chips, cookies, goldfish, peanut butter, uncooked pasta, canned vegetables, bread, nuts, fruit snacks, and Cheerios. Okay, I have some questions for you. Where should cheese be stored? Should cheese be stored in the pantry, the refrigerator, or the freezer? Hey, if you said cheese should be stored in the refrigerator, you are correct. Where should marshmallows be stored? Pantry, refrigerator, or freezer? If you said pantry, you are correct. Where should frozen vegetables be stored? Pantry, refrigerator, or freezer? If you said freezer, you are correct. Where should cereal be stored? Pantry, refrigerator, or freezer? If you said the pantry, you are correct. Great job today in science class. Remember to complete your Google form. Hopefully you earned your 5 Metro Bucks today for doing a great job paying attention in science class. I'll see you next time at Miss Anna's At Home Science Lab. Bye!